Welcome to the Centre Bounce. We're here to talk with the one and only Big J about his North Melbourne Kangaroos, how they did in 2022, and looking forward to what's to come in 2023. Big J. Big J, here we are talking about your boys. Tell us how you're feeling.
I'm tired. Just woke up. But North Melbourne, it's 3 years of hell, I guess, have kind of culminated in the team that you saw in 2022. But the team's looking better now. We've actually got a coach and things like that. Bit of a big transition year last year as well. So a few kids kind of getting played through different positions, which really helped. But it's kind of hard to do anything when you just don't have a coach. So, or not a capable coach. Can't pass your VCE exams if you don't study. Can't really be a good football team if you don't have a coach behind you. So, yeah.
Very true. My thoughts. I think a lot of people thought that your boy Noble was treated fairly harshly, but at the end of the day, if it's gonna yield getting a new coach for the likes of Alistair Clarkson, then a lot of work was done behind the scenes, and clearly a lot of Sonia Hood in particular. So I'm sure that is something that you're really excited about, this new change at North.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Like, I guess one of those things where you hear a lot of things that happened like outside of the club or within the club, like after hours, that kind of stuff. So hearing some interesting tales about Noble with some of the players and the way he kind of took on the job and the responsibilities, that kind of thing. Maybe he was the right pick to start with, or like you thought he was the right pick, but obviously we've got someone better now, so pretty happy with that.
Absolutely. So I guess we'll start talking then about the year that's gone by for your Kangaroos. And, it was one that, like you said, was a transition year. There was a lot of
It was
change,
bad, yeah.
it was a bad year on the field, right? We can't
Mm.
deny that it was a bad field and bad year. But it's all about the big picture when it comes to football. Things very rarely happen just click in the course of one year. And
Mhm.
I think that you guys have done a decent job trying to set yourselves up for the future, and that future could come sooner rather than later. You only got the 2 wins last year. One against West Coast, which was close to being a loss, and this one as well against the Tigers, which was, as you can tell, also very nearly a loss. So two
Yeah.
just two very close wins this year. Obviously, this one against Richmond was, I think, clearly your best performance for the year. It would have been Collingwood had you guys managed to hold on and beat Collingwood. That would have been something amazing. But
Mm.
tell us were your thoughts on the field with your North Melbourne Kangaroos.
Yeah. It really felt like over the last couple of years, I think it's been evident that we've been competitive in parts, and I know the coaches have been talking about that a bit, being competitive in parts, but maybe gassing out, maybe a couple of poor decisions, that kind of things really hurt us quite a lot. Obviously, that happens with being a younger team, but I think also maybe alludes to a bit of off-field problems and the fitness, that kind of stuff just isn't up to scratch. So, like you were saying about Collingwood, obviously this Richmond game here, they might have had a bit of a poor spot, but that doesn't really discount how well we did as well. Obviously, one of our better games. There was other games during the season where we lost in like the last 5-10 minutes, that kind of thing as well. So the talent's there, but we just needed someone to really steer the sheep a little bit. It was very painful. I think we were up to 12 or 11 wins, sorry, 12 or 11 losses in a row, coming off some really big losses too, not even 5-10 points, like what was it, like 80 point plus or something, 11 in a row. So it
Yeah,
was
it was pretty
pretty
bad.
dreadful. It was pretty dreadful. But in saying that, we got our draft picks, and this year, kind of everyone's forgotten a little bit. You only look forward. You don't look at how bad it last season was unless you won the flag. So, yeah, we could have done worse, but we did do pretty bad. So, what can you do?
But you unearthed some players that you were really happy to see, and you were, these young players that got you really excited to, moving forward. I know were there any players in particular that you saw this year that you're really excited to see next season?
The likes of Paul Curtis was really good for us. We've never really had success with the first round picks have been okay, but never really had success with picks, second round, third round, fourth round. They're generally players we've delisted in previous years, just because the scouting's been poor or things like that. So having him come out and do how well he did, really good for us in that forward line. Guys like LDU kind of breaking out. There's always been talk about him being ready. Is this his year? Is this his year? And then I think, probably 2023, but building off what he did last year was definitely one of those players as well. So, in a poor performing team, he's a really good light for us as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess then, speaking about the team, we'll discuss some of the changes that came to the team, and it seems to take on a bit of a purple hue this year. The North Melbourne Kangaroos, they're just a little bit, rating the Dockers a little bit there with both Griffin Logue and Darcy Tucker coming across from the other side of the country. Tell me, are you happy with these guys? You reckon they'll just slot right in and just really do wonders for you guys?
Well, we'll just touch on the assistant package a little bit. So, obviously, end of 2021, we have been asking for a bit of an assistance package from the AFL. Can we get some priority picks so you guys can see how poorly our team's going, all that kind of jazz. End of 2022, we got something. I don't think it was what a lot of the fans thought we were going to get. I think a lot of people thought maybe we were going to get a lot more than what we did. But Tucker and Logue basically coming across for free was fantastic. We gave up a future 2 and a future third round pick that we had to spend on players this year in the trade period. We couldn't keep them for following years. I don't even think we could trade them out for picks, do like a pick swap for them. So yeah, it worked out quite well. Darcy Tucker, a decent midfielder, having some injury troubles at Freo, and it's really hard to kind of break into that team as well. A lot of the young kids like Brayshaw, Sarong, those guys coming through, even like a fit Fife and a Mundy, it's hard for a guy who's somewhat on the fringes of the best 22 to break in. So, picking him up for a third rounder wasn't bad. And then Griffin Logue, so really good defender, but as you know, Freo's defense is pretty stacked. No one's breaking in barring huge injuries. So they wanted to play him every week, and he did swing into the back line, but was played out of position quite a lot. I know from interviews and from people speaking with him that one of the main reasons, obviously Clarko coming across, which was big, but also coming to a team that said, yep, we're going to play you in the defense every week was really big for him, because he can kick goals, he can mark really well, kind of those attributes that mix between the two. But, you want to play your set position every week, right?
Of course, for consistency purposes, and you can get into a great momentum and start to build on some good form. But it just seems to fill a need, I think, for you. A lot of times, I really felt bad for Mackay, playing for you guys. He's been such a cornerstone for you, and so much work gets put on him. I can't help but feel that shoring up the back line will also do wonders for him and maybe allow him to flourish a bit more. Do you think you can see that happening?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's probably going to be one of the key things for keeping him, because I think he's out of contract next year. So coming up to free agency, I think that's one of the key things that's really going to keep him there. If we didn't bring in players who would help fill needs and help give him some support in the back line, he'd probably end up looking to go somewhere else. Whereas now I think we've somewhat locked him in. One of the things we were really struggling with as well is that we don't have a lot of strong talls in the back line, and Lowe definitely offers that for us. Whereas like Mackay would have, your best team's key forward, and then you'd have someone a lot shorter on the next one or two guys that the teams would target as their marking target in the forward 50. So being able to like have someone now to cover that second and third player and shuffle people around, it helps quite a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And so speaking of, potentially him moving to another team, did you see it, maybe him moving to Carlton, all those tweets of his brother, like, oh, I would love to play together? Or do you think it's all just a conspiracy and they really are just the one person?
They're definitely not the one person, but it's interesting. The AFL's got this, I think, with the Dacos brothers playing and, the Davey brothers playing at Essendon, those kind of things, where I feel like some teams and fans kind of love the romanticism of it, of, hey, let's get the brothers to play together. They kicked footy out in the backyard when they were kids, but I think sometimes as well, players just like to have their own careers. So you'd hate for the brothers to team up and then, that'd be fantastic. I think it's a bit different with them playing both ends of the ground. But, it's not really needed. So I'll take Harry at North, though. We'll do it that way.
Very good. Alrighty then. Someone who you won't be taking into next year is Jason Horne-Francis. He's left the team. The Hornet is gone, and there are a few people happy about that, from what I could tell.
Yeah, it's probably the biggest news departure in a long time, just across the AFL, like over multiple years. That first round pick going to another club. We think we've had times when you've had high first round picks going in there, like after their second year's finished, like their initial contract's done, but never really in contract. I know he had some off-field issues, wasn't really gelling with the team, that kind of stuff. A lot of go-home factor and a lot of pull from like his stepfather and kind of that kind of thing as well. So, hey, come back to Port, who I think he played for them as well at some point. So maybe it'd been some off-field shenanigans there with Port officials trying to get him across the line. But yeah, he was great in the first part of the season, but I think just like as the club struggled, he really struggled as well. There were times when he'd been dropped into the VFL or, came out injured or got fines and things like that on field doing stupid stuff where another player might not have. So I guess in the long run, I'm happy he left. I'm happy that, not happy that he didn't turn out to be the player that you wanted to, because, first pick, you want it to be a really good player. But we got well compensated for what it was. I've spoken to other people about how we got offered quite a lot for the first pick, last year in the draft. But not taking that allowed us to pick up a Logan Tucker plus the other guys you'll see, because we offloaded Horne-Francis and got quite a few good picks.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all worked out in the end, absolutely. But you've also got some other delistings, Jed Anderson, R2 Basinavalagi, had another try with a different team with Stripes that didn't work out. Hayden's gone, McInnes, Walker, another Walker, and your favorite player on North Melbourne also, Jared Pollock, also gone. I know the tears were flowing. The tears were flowing through the streets when this news was announced, I'm sure.
Yeah. I'll speak on him first. Obviously, I think we brought him in 2018 draft, I think, where we got Taron Thomas with our academy pick. So we had to get rid of the first rounder anyway because it was going to be eaten up by the academy bid. So got him and Pittard in. Pittard got dropped a couple of years ago, whereas Pollock had been given like a monster contract. Somehow Cam Joyce thought it was great to give him 5 years at big money. Was always a supporting player. I know people talk about him being a big fish, but was always a supporting player. So if the team was doing well, he'd do okay, but he'd never really be asked to carry, which kind of the money he was on would allude to him kind of being that positional player for us. But the last at least 2 years, he's really struggled with his foot injuries. It was something that he had brought from Brisbane and then brought from Port. I don't know if the club didn't do their due diligence or not, but something they thought they could manage, but obviously didn't really happen. You'd watch him at training sometimes and he'd only be able to do half a game of training, half a session, where like halfway through he'd stop and have to take his shoes off and like walk into the club rooms or just like walk around doing laps, that kind of thing. So there's always really been that injury cloud for him. And surprisingly, we managed to get him off his contract a year early as well. So it worked out quite well for us. I think he's off playing for Yarraville now in the local leagues. So good luck to him there. But really, the team that we're trying to build, having that free list spot, is probably worth more than the leadership and the quality of playing that he brings in. What can you do?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you tried, you persisted, but if things just not everything works out. And Tom Lynch did well to retire as well, and I think he was I thought it was a handy pickup at the time when he came to join you guys. Were you happy with the sort of service that Tom Lynch gave you, or do you think he probably overstayed his? He stayed probably maybe 1 year too long.
Well, I think he only stayed for the 1 year anyway, because he was basically brought in as he'd retired from the Crows, was
Right.
lured across to North with like a leadership type coaching role in mind, which he did for a bit of the season. I think mid-year he delisted himself or retired basically, and now he got a job coaching our VFL team. So kind of that's what he was looking to do anyway, and it was kind of one of those things where I think you try and navigate the salary cap a little bit with these like rookie listed players. 100K contract for a player is not great, but if you're doing coaching in like your first year, it's not terrible, right? Speaking of, guess just to the other departures while we're here, Anderson delisted kind of hurts a little bit. I know some fans were really sad that he did go. Kind of one of those established players at a club where you would have had it with Essendon, those guys who's been at a club for like 5, 6, 7 years, become a fan favourite. Does some good things on field, but not enough in a growing competitive team. Really good for tackles, but his disposal efficiency just wasn't there. And some of his decision making, who would pass to on field, that kind of thing, in what situations hurt quite a lot. R2, similar to that, came across in the Steve-O deal from Collingwood. Played a few games, but never really found his stride, and felt like he was one of those players who could do okay in the VFL, but never really break out into the senior team. Similar to a Hayden, same kind of thing. Played some games, was really tough on field. His grunt and prowess that way was never a problem, but never really played enough consistency to make it into the team. McGuinness, similar to that, never really played much. I think he did some VFL Category B rookie, but never broke into the side. Josh Walker was probably the hardest done one out of everybody. Played at 3 clubs, but also played, when we needed a key defender, he'd play that role. When we needed a key forward, he'd try his best in there as well. So there may have been a spot for him to come on, but with the players who we did pick up in the SSP through the draft as well, in the rookie draft, there just wasn't, another list spot. I think maybe if we had, 6 or 7 rookie list spots, he might have taken up one of those. But outside of that, he was kind of dropped there.
Well, I mean, it is a cutthroat industry. It is, a one where you demand high performance, and from what we can tell, and there was that video from one of those initial meetings with Clarko, that we're not just looking for players that can play football. We're looking for players that are going to build that next premiership team. And I guess that can sort of bring us to these high profile, high draft picks that you guys have brought in the draft, who, you guys are really keen on, and you are well compensated for the loss of, the Hornet, and you've got yourselves now some incredibly talented players. So you got Harry Sheasel, pick 3, you got Wardlaw, inside mid, pick 4, Braden George at pick 26, and then you also got a father-son in there, just the nice cherry on top for that draft, for the drafts. You got Cooper Harvey in there. Seriously, how excited are you to see these players play?
Oh man, the next couple of years when they start to really build into their bodies and find a space on the team, I think you can see kind of the light at the end of the tunnel with North a little bit, at least with the fans. Give them a couple of years of actual coaching and things like that, and it's going to be scary to watch. You're actually going to have fans turning up and be excited and being like, hey, we're a fair chance to win this game against the top teams. 2 or 3 guys who really fill roles and offer something that we really haven't had for a long time as a club, and people who fit in, I guess, to what we need as well. So like a Harry Sheasel, we've always struggled with X factor in the forward line. We've got a little bit of that with Paul Curtis, so guys who are really unselfish, but we've always struggled with like having to rely on Larky and Zerha, for example, to do a lot in that forward line. So Paul Curtis coming in, but also Harry Sheasel playing a similar type role, a bit, being a lot higher draft pick, which adds to kind of how good he is. He wasn't escaping the top 4 picks this year. That's just how good he is. So he can kick goals. He is in the position where he'll put himself in the right spot to do well, but also is pretty unselfish where he'll set up other people as well. So works out quite well that way. Wardlaw as well, really strong, powerful mid, similar to an Ashcroft when they did play and when he did play as well. Really, really powerful forward, kind of likened to an Oliver type. I guess a lot of players get likened to the best players in the AFL, but kind of seems a little bit like what he was. Maybe not as big body-wise, but the talent's definitely there. Braden George as well, fantastic player. If he didn't have an ACL in his... everyone's got 2 ACLs. If he didn't do an ACL in his draft year towards the end, would have gone a lot higher. And we have long-term injury listed him, which freed up another rookie spot for a guy we'll talk about as well. But yeah, done really well to pick him up at that price. And similar to, I guess, what we've talked about off-field with Will Phillips coming back from injury. This year we've got picked up 2 draft picks plus a Will Phillips, whereas next year we'll have 2 draft picks because we've got Ports first as well, and then Braden George coming in. So it's like an injection of 3 first-rounders straight away, which is, it's fantastic for us. So doing well. And then Cooper Harvey there. So I've always argued that if he didn't break his arm like twice during his junior year, 18 year, I think he would have got a lot higher because the games that he did play, he did do well in. But it's just fantastic to kind of lock in that player as, father-son, record games holders kid, trained with us during the off-season, looked quite good, and has played some seniors at maybe not VFL level, but the next level down. So that does quite well, not afraid of having a scrap.
Would you consider it far-fetched or an over-exaggeration to say that you guys won the draft this, or you were probably, if not one, then probably runners up for winning the draft?
It's interesting you say that, and I think maybe with George we did, but we didn't really. It's not like we had a pick in the teens or a pick in the late the late first rounder, that kind of thing, and we managed to nab like someone fantastic. Our first 2 picks were kind of locked in. Our day 1 of the draft was locked in with who we were going to pick. So on talent, yes, I think we did fantastic, but it's not like the club's made some crazy moves during the actual draft that's locked in a guy that's kind of, fallen back, like maybe like a Hawthorn and a Sydney did, or even like a St Kilda did a little bit, that kind of thing. So on talent on the books, sure, top two in the draft, no worries. But it would have been cool if like your club had, made some off-field moves, that kind of thing. And, a bit of that draft day antics would have been fantastic. Day one was basically, we've got Sheasel and Wardlaw done. We've locked them in. It was known that they were coming for like a month beforehand the draft. They let it slip a little bit that, they've spoken to everybody they're coming across. So, yeah, what can you do, right?
I mean, there is a benefit though. I mean, you're not sitting there in angst. You're not sitting there in suspense. What's going to happen? What's not going to happen? It's exciting, yeah, but you had all of your excitement and your drama when Horn Francis left. I mean, that was already, I think, enough. So your drama was sort of just pushed forward a bit in the timeline, and your team still had to negotiate the deals and in that big mega trade, which then yielded you to get both Sheasel and Wardlaw. So I think all in all, you were only going to get one of them, but one player, and that was going to be the number one pick, but now you end up with both Sheasel and Wardlaw, who I think as a package is better. So I would definitely not sell your team short. And then you also rookie listed some people. Can you tell us about Blake Drury and Hamish Free?
Yeah, and we also picked up Howe as well. So Daniel Howe from the VFL. I think he got delisted from Hawks the year before. And then we re-rookied Kane Turner as well. And we picked up someone else who we'll just talk about afterwards as well. So Blake Drury is a small forward, done really well. I think he played in the similar team to either Wardlaw or Sheasel, so they all kind of know each other a little bit there. A few of our younger players as well kind of know him. Really, really good X-Factor type small forward. I know Clark and a few of the other guys got picked up by other clubs, but really surprising that Drury kind of fell as far as he did in the rookie draft, or made it to the rookie draft just in general. Was definitely worth a spot, with those picks in the 50s, clubs looking for him. And I think he's going to add to the list of rookie small forwards who do really well, like your Papley types, that clubs are just like, man, I wish we had taken him. We had the availability to do so. Why did we pass? That kind of stuff. Powerful small forward, bit of X factor there. Similar to like a Sheasel where he knows where to go and his kicking's just phenomenal. Probably, I think he's had like second or third biggest hands in his draft year. So he can just grab the ball and go crazy with it. I'm not surprised if he plays early. For at least from the training reports that I've seen and other people talking, the coaching staff's pretty excited with him. And if we can get a small forward that plays early, it'd be really great for us. Hamish Free picked up, I think he was like an electrician or something, and then didn't even know that he obviously went to the national draft. He's from Perth. Went to the national draft, didn't get drafted, went to work the next day, got a call from his boss saying, hey, you've been picked up in the AFL. So that's pretty cool when that happens. Didn't even know which club he got picked up from until they had the phone call from Big Clarko. So I've spoken before on other podcasts about how strong, like having a strong VFL team is really important, and mimicking, I guess, what your AFL team does with the VFL team in terms of structures and things like that. So Free kind of gives us the capacity to run, in the AFL, we might run 2 rucks, whereas now we've got Free and we can run 2 rucks as well. So, and it's another guy to kind of put pressure on CCJ and Cherry in there to fight for that number 1 ruck spot, because Goldie realistically has probably got 1 or 2 years left. And currently we don't have anyone locked into the position. So we're kind of looking for that as well. He did really well in his state leagues as well. I think he averaged something like 41 hitouts. So he's got the talent there, just needs like a bit of, AFL conditioning, that kind of stuff. Howe was really good as well. So great pick up there for us.
Awesome. It's really good to hear. And you can really just see it. There's a growing list of talented youngsters really converging, I suppose, and developing. And now that you've got Alistair Clarkson across, and it just feels like North Melbourne, as you say, are going to be scary good in a few years' time. And I think a lot of people are sleeping on North Melbourne, and they're going to be kind of surprised when they see, wait a second, these guys are actually not that joke that we saw a couple of years ago. For example, in a couple of years' time, when these players have really built into their bodies,
Mm,
this year that's gone past is going to seem like a distant memory. So
yeah,
I can totally understand your excitement and your enthusiasm around
and
your boys. Yeah, go
and
for it.
bringing in, yeah, A grade, not A grade talent anymore, but bringing in your established premiership scoring talent in Liam Shields as well, really driving those training standards. So we not delisted,
Of
we
course.
long term is injury listed Braden George. We'll talk about his ACL. In the SSP, we've come in and brought in um, Liam Shields. So three or four
Yeah.
time premiership player under Clarko, kind of knows what the standards needs to be for him to grow and for the club to get better as well. So really, really good pick up there. He might play some games, but he's not really brought on for that role.
No, no, definitely not. I don't think. But the standards that he sets, the ability for him, I suppose, to show the younger players what is required to succeed. You've got a new coach now who is one of the greatest of all time. If you know, so with that, we sort of reckon that there's going to be an improvement in the wins department. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you only had the 2 wins this year, but we think that you can at the very least double that. And we don't. You're definitely not going to be the worst team in the comp next year. That's for sure.
No.
So um, we've got you finishing between 12th and 14th. Do you think that's is that too ambitious? Do you think for North Melbourne to finish even as high as 12, or do you think that's within the realm of possibility still?
Um, if we're going off the notion that there's probably 12 teams or so that are really pushing for finals and they're that level quality, I think we're probably 13th on that list. Or potentially we could be, depending if everything kind of works out okay. I guess we'll see that going into the preseason games and then the first couple of games of the season. But like you say, I don't think we're going to be bottom of the ladder. I don't think we're going to be bottom four. People say, hey, who's going to take your spot then? Whereas, 2 years ago, Collingwood were like third last on the ladder. Sydney were like third last on the ladder the year before. Brisbane the same, and Melbourne the same as well. So there's always teams that, they have a couple of injuries, that kind of thing, and they just drop off. So I don't think that's going to be us, hopefully, this year. Definitely double our wins, if not triple or quadruple like we've got there. I'm thinking like 5 to 6 wins. If we didn't have that, I think I would be a little bit concerned. Just the natural progression, I think, I'll talk about the coach more, but adding an actual coach and a game plan and the fitness standards, that kind of thing, really can change a club around. And that's kind of what
Yeah.
we've got happening at us. So, yeah. It's not like the talent's
Awesome.
not on the list.
No, definitely not. It's really just about directing it, I suppose. And from preseason training thus far, are you seeing that the team is up and about in terms of the players seem to? How can you compare how the team is faring at this point of the season, the off season compared to previous years? Do you feel like there is a rebound around the corner with this new direction?
It really feels like the players have kind of been like had a fire lit under them a little bit. Obviously, we've mentioned like some of Clarko's speeches that have been posted, that kind of stuff. And you can kind of see it from how the players are going. So players who maybe wouldn't be doing training during the free time of the AFL, between Christmas break and New Year's, when they should be off, having holidays. There's been a lot of sightings of players and big groups of players going down to the club and busting their guts, doing running programs, that kind of thing, so they can get fit. Guys putting extra time in with like external PTs, that kind of stuff as well. But those kind of small efforts that we haven't really seen in the last couple of years heading into a preseason, we're seeing a lot now under the coach. as kind of Clarko's first speech, saying that, we've got AFL players, but are you guys premiership players? Can you win a premiership for us? If not, you might get dropped, you might not get recontracted. I think that's really kind of shaken things up for a lot of guys. And we even see that a bit from their established players. So they're putting in a lot of work this preseason. But we'll see kind of in the next 2 weeks or so when players come back from holidays, what kind of things they're in, what form they're in. But at the moment, yeah, definitely.
Awesome. And we've got a couple of players here that we wanted to discuss, I suppose, and get your thoughts on. Because we know you added Sheasel, who's a medium forward now in the draft, but you have been, I suppose, lacking in the key forward department when it comes to support for Nick Clarkey, who he is so talented, but unfortunately he is so hard done by with lack of support and opposition teams really putting in a lot of work into him. So we know you got a guy, Charlie Combat, on your team who has a lot of talent, just hasn't been able to get on the park and really show it. Do you think he can become that much needed second key forward to help him out?
Well, the talent's definitely there, and the club certainly thinks so. I think so as well. The fact that we haven't really even actively gone out and drafted a key forward in the last 2 or 3 years since we picked him up's really kind of shown the loyalty and the faith we've got in him, saying, hey, when you get fit, when you get ready, this kind of position's for you. So there's been spurts. I think he played a game last year, had some foot injuries, that kind of stuff, but has now come back into the preseason, is just firing some of the marks and things like that he's been taking, the work he's been putting in. And I'm fairly sure the club's come out and actually told him as well, hey, it's your position to lose now. So I think he can definitely play that spot. I think Larkey will end up being the kind of guy that hangs around the centre half forward position, whereas Combin's kind of that tall marking forward deep into the forward line. The guy that you would kick to kind of there. Obviously he can run, but he's not the most mobile out of the two players.
Right. And speaking of someone else who, might have been told that the position is yours, go and make the most of it. You got LDU. Does he become that bona fide A grader that, the midfield is his, so to speak? Do you see that happening this in 2023?
Clubs like St Kilda has their Jack Steele. Melbourne's got their Oliver and Petrarca. GWS has Josh Kelly. I think LDU finally becomes that kind of player for us. So it's taken him a while. He was in that, I think it was 2017 draft year, so same as Brayshaw, that kind of thing. Has been a little bit behind him in development just because of like off-field injuries. So had OP for a couple of times, that kind of thing, having leg injury, that kind of stuff. So as a younger junior level player in the AFL can really kind of hamper your development. Whereas I think now the body's been right. We saw how good he was last year towards the end of the season, and it's really helped to carry over now. He's been putting in a lot of work in the preseason. There's been some footage of him with like trainers, that kind of stuff. And yeah, I truly believe that like with an actual coach who can teach him the way, kind of mold around him, being that distributor from the midfield into the forward line. He loves a run and kick. He's really good at it, and he's powerful enough that he can just burst from the speed and break tackles. Not going to say Judd-like, but people have been quoting Judd-like from him. So we'll see how well that works out for him. But definitely, I think this is the year for him. We'll actually start having some elite talent on the list coming up, which is really great. And LDU's kind of going to start pushing that himself.
Is he in your Supercoach team?
Not yet, just because of price to potential isn't there compared to a few other players. You want to start a few risks in Supercoach, but you can't have a full team of risks. So, not saying he won't be an A graded by the end of the season, but I think there might be a little bit of rocky start just for the club, first time playing under a new coach, that kind of thing. So, yeah.
Fair enough. Makes sense. Well,
Yeah.
I suppose that brings our discussion to a close about North. Thank you so much, Big
Mhm.
J. I can definitely feel the excitement, obviously in this video, but all of our discussions off the air, and my thoughts as well. I'm also really bullish about your boys and about your mob, and I think a lot of people want to see North Melbourne succeed. It's not great to have just a whipping team in the competition where everyone just rocks up and smashes every week. It's
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
not healthy. And I think a lot of us are really excited to see a growing, relevant North Melbourne that can really challenge some sides. And I think that's going to be happening really, really soon. So
Mm.
thanks again, Big J. Looking forward to it. And guys, please stay tuned on the Centre Balance. We've got more team reviews coming up. We've got more Super Coach videos coming up as well. So it's going to be really busy between now and the start of the season. But we've got you covered, guys. So please stay tuned. And if you have any questions, any comments, please leave them down below. Like, share, subscribe, all that jazz. Anything you wanted to say, Big J, before we close off?
It's going to be really exciting to start going to some, well, no, not start going, but going to some more games this year and being able to cheer and not kind of hide your head as we get smashed by 100 points. So definitely looking for that this year.
Yeah, we'll go to some more games together, man. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.